Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, awarded RevTech strategist of 2024. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest talks about why ongoing training is essential. She addresses some of the buyer challenges and how the buyer's journey has changed and the impact that has on outbound marketing, specifically digital marketing, and salespeople really understanding the journey the customers go on prior to reaching them. A seasoned B2B consultant, speaker, fractional CMO, author and podcaster. She's author of 5 business books and the modern AI marketer in ChatGPT era and the modern marketer guide to Gen NI prompts are out, have just been launched. She works closely with both sales and marketing teams to develop cohesive plans that aligns with overall business goals. So please welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Pam Didner.
Janice, thank you so much. Love to be here.
Well, I'm really interested in getting into this conversation, talking about sales, marketing, and AI. It's a very popular topic. And I know that you've written a lot about this, and so you've got lots of strategies to offer our listener, Pam. So, the first thing that I'd like to dig into is that, do you think that sales teams are utilizing what's available to us now, AI, enough? Sales teams, marketing teams, do you think that they're kind of familiar and utilizing it enough?
So obviously, ChatGPT was launched on November 30th, 2022. And from that point on until now, everybody's trying to use AI bot. If nothing else, kind of using AI bot like a search function. They have a specific questions. They will ask the AI bot, and then the AI will provide a very specific answer based on your question. So many people are using that. If you are doing that, great. You are literally in this AI pool, leveraging AI. But because AI kind of like way back in 2007 and 2008, when iPhone was launched, and everybody was busy app to using iPhone or our mobile devices, very similar because AI has this vast functionality. And so a lot of people are building like the bot, a very specific bot to tailor your needs. So there's an app for that. Now there's a bot for that. The key is you need to understand where you want to inject AI. And that is the question that everybody is struggling right now.
Right. So is that the kind of structure that you provide with? I know that you've written 2 books and they're just launching this month. So is that the kind of structure that you felt was missing that you needed to provide?
That's a very good question. And Janice, I want to keep it a little succinct, if you will. So obviously at the individual level, and you are like, okay, and this is how I do my job. And I'm going to search for one specific bot to help me. Because at the individual level, you have a total control of your job. And you say, okay, that is the bot. I think that can help me, and I'm going to use that. Great. But at the organization level, that's a little bit different because everybody is doing that job or that specific function, similarly, right? They are not necessarily have their own process in terms of how they do their daily job. So at the organization level, you need to have a conversation. You need to think about it in terms of that specific team, say a content marketers or the salespeople. They all sell your product, they all market your product, but how do they do differently? Understanding the differences before you source a specific AI bot. Because if it's not tailored to how they do their jobs, it may not provide that leverage or the usage the way you want it.
There's been a massive explosion over the last 10 years of the sales stack following on from, marketing tech. And often I go into sales teams and discover that actually they're only using 10% of what this very expensive tool can do. And that's the very reason, is that they buy the tool, it's like an add-on, as opposed to the questioning that you've talked about. You've got to understand where your need is and, the sweet spot of exactly what you wanted to do in your existing process to actually find the tool that is most useful for that particular gap that you're trying to fill.
Janice, you hit the core, and I talk to many clients as well, and they all share with me, say, you know why we purchased this tool, but our salespeople are not using it. And trust me, I have launched a share of my tools more for my sales teams, and you know what? It's a total failure. They are not using it. And I have come to realize one thing: rather than launching a tool and expect them to use it, you really have to understand how they do their jobs first, and then help them understand in terms of how they can use that tool to make their jobs better. In many ways, I think training does provide a lot of help. When I say training, it's not like a Zoom training, it's more hands-on training. You almost have to, I hate saying this, kind of like stand behind your back, and they are typing. You say, okay, hit this button, do this, do that, and then to get everybody to use it. You are right in terms of that not a lot of the salespeople leverage 100% of their tools their company set up for them. And I also have a slightly different perspective for that too, and that's from sales side. Sales people are telling me and say, hey, I'm not using those tools 100%, but I still do my job, efficiently, and I also hit my quota. So if they do hit their quotas on quarterly basis, it's kind of like betting average. They're still betting well. Why do they have to change their swing? So, you have to somehow find that balance in terms of how much you want to push for the sales tag into your salespeople. If they are struggling, I think technology will certainly help. But if they are not struggling, then you have to kind of find that balance.
I mean, I think that's really interesting. I think it's an interesting perspective, because you often find that a sales leader will join a team and they have their own methodology and tools that they're used to. They then helicopter in their methodology and tools. The sales leader leaves 2 years later and the process starts again. And, you'll often have a team that has a mishmash of methodologies. They adapt because it's what they're used to doing. They may be hitting target, so why change it? But there's a lot of inefficiencies in that everyone's doing their own thing. And then also, if you leave people to their own methods, then
Can you say that again, Janice? You leave
people to their own methods.
Oh, people. Got it.
People to their own methods. How do you progress? How do you upskill? How do you move people on? And I know that we're going to talk about the buyer's journey and all of the work that you've done in that area. But because buyers are changing so much, we both know salespeople are not changing quite so fast. So you kind of need to kind of move them forward, get them to adopt new skills. So how does that work if they're hitting target, leave them alone? How do you negotiate that?
So, Janice, that's actually a very good question. That's the challenge that I think a lot of leaders and also salespeople encounter. And it's kind of like the worst case and also the best case. The best case is, sales revenue is continuing to grow and there's no issue, right? Good. And because of that, there's a school basically said, well, don't rock the boat, right? And then there's another a school basically say it's continuing to grow, but you could do better. That continues to learn, right? And because of that, we inject the tools proactively and try to help us anticipate the future trends, anticipate what's going to happen. So then because of that, it's very important that proactively to modify your behaviors and also tailor. And also our buyers are changing. I agree with you. And like I said, I'm going to talk about what happened in reality and also what you can do to actually help your salespeople to maneuver that ever-changing landscape. The reality is, don't rock the boat. Nobody wants to rock the boat when everything is going so well. And it's very hard. And I just want to make that very clear. And I'm a practitioner, so I know the reality of it. It's very hard to change salespeople when it's going that well, everything is rosy. It's very hard. I just also put that on the table and we all understand, right? The things that you need to do is education. It's continuous education. It's like, Janice, I don't know if you have kids. I have 2 boys. Okay, how many times do we have to tell the boys, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth? It's every day for 2 years. Finally, you say, oh, I clicked. I need to brush my teeth every night. Well, that also applies. I'm not saying salespeople are kids. Well, to some extent, they are. It's a continuous education. You have to tell them buyers are changing. Buyers are getting sophisticated, right? Marketing is changing because buyers are changing. Well, it's going to hit you one day, sooner or later. So you need to proactively address that potential issue. It's going to come to you.
Yeah,
it's not going to be today.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be coming. So it's that continuous education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and in the last 30 years, we've had sales teams, sales individual. Really, it's only about 30% of them are consistently hitting target. The greater majority are not. It's hit and miss. You know, so the people
they are doing well. I talked to some. Yes, you are totally right.
Yeah, the people we don't have to worry about because they're consistently hitting targets. But it's really interesting, you know. So I use a data-informed tool. It's been going for last 30 years doing sales assessments, and now we're able to interrogate all of that data to what is a great salesperson for your industry, your sector, your market, all of that, and benchmark it. But it's really interesting in that what we think is a great salesperson, what we believe is a great salesperson, isn't always in reality. We still have this view of what great selling is, and it tends to be someone that's more gregarious, you know, someone that's very vocal and, you know, isn't, you know, talks a lot, you know, is a really good talker. We often recruit that type of person, but actually it can be the best salespeople, the opposite of what we think is a great salesperson. So I think even though we have a percentage of people that consistently hit target, I agree with you. Moving things forward, it's always about continuous education and encouragement, and because we all want to, the great people want to continue to improve. And as we've mentioned before, buyers are doing that with or without us. So let's talk a bit more about understanding the buyer's journey from an outbound marketing point of view, and what has changed and what we need to be aware of, what we need to be doing differently.
So the outbound marketing, obviously, just to make sure everybody understands, outbound marketing is the marketing that you do, you know, to drive traffic back to your website. So that's outbound. And the inbound is basically that organic traffic or whatever you do that it's actually coming to your website. And for outbound, I think a lot of things have changed is the digital, right? In the past, everybody do a lot of events, okay, in person. Wow, in person, that just sounds so foreign now. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot of in-person events, and there's a lot of kind of print, pay ads, and etc. And the outbound that people are doing more and more, and it's actually a digital, right? So it's the email, the pay ads, and Also, even the webinars, a lot of virtual events that drive traffic back to your website and that help people to understand what you do. And you build that awareness, and then they come to your website to either get in touch with you or they download the content that you have, especially on the B2B side. I'm more focused on the B2B, if you will. And so that part of it is more kind of digital communication, because they're coming from the digital side. And then when they come to your website, there's a lot of follow-ups that needs to happen to make sure you keep that prospect, the term that we use is nurturing, or keep the prospect warm. But really is because the B2B buying journey tend to be a whole lot longer, the purchasing cycle. So when people come to your website or even subscribe your form, you have to think through what are the follow-up that you have to do. And that follow-up, in a way, is driving the person or the prospect down the purchase funnel. And as a salesperson, tend to focus on the bottom of the purchase funnel. It's very important that you understand how that person becomes a sales qualified leads. What are the things that has been done to get to that point so you can have additional conversations with that prospect? So I think sales needs to understand that some sort of buyer's journey, how to get to the point that becomes that a person in front of you that you can talk to. To understand that is going to help you to drive additional relevant conversation moving forward to close the deals. So that's how I see in terms of the digital changing in terms of the engagement with the salespeople.
So are you saying that salespeople do not understand how their buyers come through that digital journey to get to them at the bottom of the funnel? Are you saying there's a disconnect there?
Janice, that's actually a great question. I think at the high level, salespeople understand. But the more I have done marketing, especially outbound marketing and also demand gen, the more humble I am. That's because the buyers are getting so sophisticated. It's harder to, I hate using the word catch them, or it's harder to get their attention. So there's a lot of things you have to think about it. The buyer psychology or how you want to approach them needs to be a little bit different.
So talk to me about what that difference is in terms of the buyer psychology.
For example, let's just use you and me as an example. How many emails do we get on daily basis that's like trying to get our attention?
Too many.
Thank you, Janice. What do? We tune out, right? Because we tune out and there's thousands of emails trying to get our attention. So marketer needs to really think through and think hard how to capture my attention. And it's getting harder and harder and harder to do. And because it's harder to do that, therefore, the number of the leads either we receive, it's probably lower quality, or we are not getting their attention. So marketing people are spending a lot of time thinking it through, but they also don't have time to think it through because they have to push out email on a regular basis. So what salespeople needs to understand is there's challenges on that side. And that challenge is to, just like you said, if 70% of the salespeople are not meeting that quota, that kind of challenges also apply to them. So how do you keep that attention? It's actually everybody's asking. I mean, I'm asking that myself, right? And it's very hard. That comes down to, Janice, you have to understand your audience deeply. When I say deeply, it's not like when they get up in the morning and what kind of show they watch. Okay, that's important on the consumer side. But it's what are some of the pinpoint and challenges? Like it's literally like it's hidden deep inside. What is that you have to uncover? I think we have to dive into more and more of that. And guess what? Marketers don't have time.
So, but it's essential that, whether it's marketing or sales, that happens. So how do you understand your buyers more deeply, as you say? That's what you said needs to happen. How does that happen?
I think that has to happen. So, there's one thing I want to also talk about is intent, right? So you have to gauge when, just like when you and I are talking, Janice, and I'm just using us as an example. You reach out to me, I'm so happy you did, and they invite me as part of your podcast. And at the same time, you also share with me in terms of, hey, when the podcast is live, make sure that also you tag me and promote it. Great. That's your intent. Intent is let's have a great, relevant conversation, useful. We learn from each other. And when the podcast is done, that's promoted. And your intent for me is, okay, have a great conversation, share that with your audience, Janice's audience, and I also promote it. That's intent. So you have to find out when the people come to your website, what is their intent? Is the intent just like, oh, you know what, you have some piece of content, let me just download, but I don't want to talk to you? Or they come to you because they have a specific problem, they are checking and researching, and they want to find out more and see if your tools can help them, right? So I think the intent comes from two perspectives. One is understand who they are. Are they your target audience? Are they just the startup that you don't talk to, or they are enterprises that you usually go after? So there is firmographics that you have to think through. And then the other one is their intent. What is their interest? Why do they come? And these two things you can only get that through enrichment of your data. That means you have your own data, then you have a third-party data to complement that, to provide additional insight about that specific customer. And the other one is very strategic, based on what you do on the marketing side to gather additional clue to understand their intent. If you have a webinar, they come to your webinar 3 times straight. You have monthly webinar, they show up 3 times. That's a piece of data intent. You're like, why do they come 3 times? Should my salespeople talk to them right now? Right? So it's that deep understanding that can only come from data. But the data needs to be also valid. And that's the challenge we all run into.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. And so it's not rushing in, it's actually sitting back and using the data to make sure that you get the right insight as to what is their intention. And then you can match up, okay, I understand what their intention is. Now I can provide the right information that's relevant and timely to them to help them to move on to where they intend to go.
Yes, that is true. You summarized so well, Janice. Thank you.
No, I love it. All right. So I just want to briefly talk about your 90-day challenge. Tell me more about that. Who is it for?
Okay, they are actually for B2B marketers. And if you are not meeting your, say, lead gen goal, if you are not working with your sales as ideal as you anticipated, and the 90-day challenge, it's actually an ebook that you can download on my website, and you click on 90-day challenge. If you under the resource, you should be able to see it. And you can download the ebook and then follow kind of like a step-by-step process, and set up a very specific goal that how you are going to work with your sales team in 90 days, just 90 days. So your goal has to be very specific, very narrow, if you will. Maybe is you're going to run a very specific campaign called win-back campaign. So you have a lot of dormant accounts, you kind of want to wake them up, right? So it's very, very short, 90 days. And the most important thing is you have to collaborate with sales team. Make sure sales commit and be part of this collaboration. And you work together for 90 days and see if you can get somewhere. That's what 90-day Sales Enablement Challenge is.
Excellent. And as you say, it's on your website, and we'll provide the link in the show notes. Yeah. So just the 2 books that you have recently launched, what was the impetus behind that? The modern AI marketer in ChatGPT era and the modern AI marketer guide to Gen AI prompts. Tell me what, there's a lot of information that's out there. What gap does this fill that others don't?
Great question. It's actually very hard to write these two books. I was trembling when I actually published this book. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to publish this book, these two books, and then immediately with 3 months, it's going to be outdated. And because AI is moving so fast, right? And so when I was writing those books, I was really focused on what are the essentials that sales and marketing people need to know. Right. So the first book is obviously about AI modern marketer, and the name is a little bit long in the GPT era. In the current era, what should a modern marketer think about AI? So I really touch on the history of it and also how to evaluate AI as a part of workflows. That's the key. And also I provided prompts examples. If you really want to use AI bots, what kind of prompts should you be writing? And then the second book is really only 50 pages. And you can dive into chapter 3. It's 75 plus prompts. It's all sales and marketing. It's a sales and marketing prompt. I think that how you should write your AI prompt as a marketer. That's it. So those are two very short books. Literally, you can binge watch Netflix and reading it.
All right, well, let me ask you, who is your hero and shero, Pam?
You know, that's actually a very good question. And of course, I have a list of a hero over a period of time, but at this time it's Taylor Swift. It's very hard to be kind of like an icon of pop culture for like 10, 12 years. And then she managed to make that happen. At the same time, she created her own content. And obviously her content resonates with her fans, and she continued to create content over a period of time to keep that the momentum going. And also she works very, very hard. That's another thing I admire her. It's not just like, okay, she's beautiful and she has talent. She works hard, and that have my respect.
Yeah, she's an excellent community builder. And you know, she can leverage that for the rest of her life, even if she's never produced another. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Pam, how can listeners get hold of you?
Yeah, I'm actually on every single social media channel, almost all of them, and including TikTok, which is I started using back in November last year. And the reason a lot of time I use different social media channel is to learn how to create the content or the content formats within that channel. So you can reach out to me in any social media channel, and also my website, pamdidner.com. If you have any marketing related question, or you just want to have a therapy session, that's totally fine too.
The therapy session about how to align marketing and sales, because that's
right.
That's forever challenge, isn't it, really?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me, Janice.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.